All right, all right, all right. Aloha Friday, everybody. Thank you for being with me this afternoon, maybe early morning, maybe late afternoon for you, but thank you for joining us this Aloha Friday day. We are highlighting from now to August 4th a lot of my AMSE business owners, military spouses doing great things. And today I have with me Franchette Dyer, and she's gonna light you up because this conversation prior to this show starting was full of activity and action. Aloha Friday, everybody. Please, if you are joining me live, please get in the comments. Let us know where you're joining us from, and support the conversation we're going to be having today as we celebrate military spouse entrepreneurs. Franchetta, welcome to Aloha Friday Live. Thank you for being with us. Before we get into all that great conversation, tell us a little bit about you.
I'm a military spouse. I'm a business owner. I own Vetech Business Services, where we help service members. We transition families from the military. I talk to the service member, then I talk to the spouse and to the dependent to make sure that they are balanced and at peace when they are transitioning. I transition the full family all the way down to the dog. So if you ever need any help, check out Vetech Business Services, and we're here to assist every military spouse, service member, and their dependent. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, I tell you, that whole offering, right? Because when we transition from one place to another, we forget that there are elements outside of the military member.
Yeah.
And probably one of the more important elements is those that are supporting them, whether it's a male or female in service, it doesn't matter. That supporting cast, that spouse, those children, and even the dog and cat, right?
Yes.
We forget about all that. And there are some nuances to how all of those relate to that specific transition,
Yes.
especially if you're going overseas. Now, you have mentioned earlier you spent a little time, just a little, overseas. So, how was that for you? And how did that um, come to play in your offerings?
Well, I had my job was in Arizona, and it was a job I had been waiting for. And that night, I was going to let my husband, well, my boyfriend at the time, know about it. And that same night, I was going to tell him about my exciting news. He proposed. So that meant on Monday, I was going to have to say no to the person who I knew I was going to have this job with. And so I had to make some decisions on marry my boyfriend or stay in Arizona. I chose to marry my boyfriend, which is my husband now for over 25 years, and moved to Germany. And Germany was an eye opening for me as a military spouse because when we got off the bus to get to the hotel, it rained, sleet, and snowed and hailed before I even got to the destination. And so I had to really learn about change and how to adapt. And that is what I did. When I got there, I went up to where my husband was working at the time, and I went and found Chief Talafoa was his name, and I gave him my resume, and I told him I'll come in at whatever position you have open, but would you consider me for a job? He looked at the resume. He told me I was overqualified. When he told me that, I said, thank you for your time. I got back on the bus, went home, went to the commissary. The next day, CPAC called me and said that I had to come in for orientation. I had a job. I didn't know where the job was at. When we finished, I asked them. They told me where it was. I went and I started working. I put myself out there. Military spouses has to remember, in the States, they call it ATS. You have to put in certain words to make sure that your resume match. Military spouses have to remember this. That's very important. You are the resume. You are the conflict resolution. You are the problem solver. You are leadership. You know how to do these things. So you have to be confident in yourself. And so for 9 years, I never had to interview for a position. I showed them what I was capable of. And they were telling me, when this position come open, I need you to apply for this position because you will do really good in this job. And we are going to pick you. So that is the difference when you're overseas. You have to be very confident and go out and get what you want. But you can't have your ego on your shoulders. You have to sometimes understand the process and understand that the highest grade in where you are living at that particular time might be a GS6. Are you willing to take a GS6 even though you were a different grade in the States? For some, they wouldn't take it and they stayed unemployed. For me, I took it and I had an MBA. So I had some degrees and still have some more. But I put everything aside and I looked at the bigger picture. And everything that I did overseas, it actually empowered my company. So being overseas helped me out a lot as a military spouse.
Now that's amazing because Germany is no Arizona.
No,
No, not by a long shot. No Arizona whatsoever. I see Jeffrey is in the chat and he is going. And I'm gonna put that up there. This is Jeffrey Rosales. You can't see it here on on StreamYard, but he's on LinkedIn supporting. Thank you, brother, for being with us today. So now, Franchetta, you're no stranger to business. Now, earlier before we was talking, you said 16?
Yes, I was 16 when I started my company.
Oh, now you're gonna have to tell us about that one.
Well, my mother and father taught us how to help people within the community. And so I took the knowledge that my parents had showed us about helping people and I put it into a business. I was helping our neighbors. I would go into her garbage can and my first job was helping her and she paid me through marshmallows. The little miniature colored marshmallows, that's how she paid me. And they were nice and cold. So I would sit with her and have conversations. So I learned how to listen. And that's very important in your business. You need to learn how to listen so you can know how to respond and how to help someone. So that's what I did, a lot of listening and helping people. And so I took all of that knowledge, and back then they weren't calling it entrepreneurship. I was typing papers, I was helping people, all these different things. So I took all of that information, took it to college, and started doing term papers. I could guarantee people that they would make an A on their term paper because I knew how to type. I typed about 120 words a minute with 2 mistakes with these nails. And I can still do that today on a computer. So I'm still a badass. But I took all of that and I used it into my business. And that's what made my business successful, was me learning how to communicate, how to listen, and not give up, and to be determined. Because my clients showed me what determination looked like. And so I took all of that knowledge and I put it into my business, Vetech Business Services, to help veterans and military spouses and their family as a whole, as one unit.
Now that's wonderful. And I'm gonna tell you, I don't know that many 16-year-olds that are running their own business or interested in listening for that matter. But you took an element that around 4 years ago, me and a partner of mine on the Leadership Void, Vince Loran, we did a survey and we say, hey, out of all the elements that there is in leadership, what is the most important aspect of a leader that needs to be in place for them to be successful? And listening was number one.
Yes.
And there's a lot of times that leaders fail to just stick to the basics. Now, you highlighted an element there that obviously even today or 4 years ago was still important, and you had exercised that and put it into play at 16. You can't receive if you're not willing to listen.
Correct.
And it's so important. So I'm glad that you struck that early and was able to capitalize. The second thing that you mentioned that I thought was intriguing was the form of pay. A lot of people think that it has to be monetary. It has to be green dollar, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. Silver, whatever the you said marshmallows.
Yes.
Now, how did you feel getting marshmallows? Now you say, hey, they were nice.
They were nice. The problem was everybody else had summer jobs.
Okay.
I couldn't get a summer job because of what my father and mother made. Now, let me explain to you what my father and mother was making. My dad brought in $720 a month. My mother brought in probably about $600 or less than that a month for 6 children. But in that 6, with that amount of money, we learned love, respect, dedication, um, and we learned that money wasn't everything. You know, my parents was married over 70 years, so they taught us a few things that I had to pick up on. And one of them was giving back and counting your blessings. And so I learned to listen, and I learned to take those marshmallows and eat them and smile. And I told my mom one day, I said, Mom, everybody else got a job. I don't even have FICA, but I got this. I got 6 or 7 different multicolored marshmallows. They're miniature, they're in a little saran wrap, and they're cold. Okay, I'll continue to help Miss Catherine. And that's what I did. And even what's so funny about this, that even when she passed away, her children told me to come up there one day, and I did. And they gave me the bag of marshmallows she had left for me. Do you know the impact of that? She thought enough of me to still leave something for me, and she wasn't there. That's the impact I like to make on my clients. Even when I'm not there, they know that they have Vetech Business Services. I say this a lot, so I'm gonna go ahead and claim this hashtag battle buddy. That is what military spouses are. When we help each other, when we help our families, when we help in our communities, we are the battle buddies for our spouses, our dependents, our children, our animals. We are the battle buddies, because once they retire, everyone is not going to be around them. No one is going to be praising them, because the mission is not them. The mission is those active duty service members. Let's be honest. And even though those active duty military spouses, you are still the backbone for your spouse, your children, your animal. And that is what Vetech Business Services is. We are the backbone to our clients. We are the backbone to military spouses. If they feel left out, find me on LinkedIn, talk to me. I can be your battle buddy, and I stand by my word.
Very powerful example to bring up. That whole story just almost brought me to tears. So you don't mind me, because I'm mushy. So, but a true leader, you know, and for her to even think of that one element it really started it all, right? It started it all. And for you to continue to share that story, and for leaders that are listening, it's not always the monetary. It's not always the nice to haves, right?
Right.
It's what you leave an impact with,
Yes.
and think about what you're leaving an impact with. Now let's talk about this business of yours, because the holistic approach that you bring to transition is very not only intriguing, but it's appealing, because I know for a fact that as a service member, there were a lot of gaps between the services that I was getting as a military member and the ones that my family were getting.
Yes.
And, you know, everybody's trying to handle this whole move, transition from this place to another. And sometimes, even as a service member, you'll forget
Yes.
about the needs of your spouse and your children and your pets. So, how did that evolve for you? You know, as you started thinking about this idea and this gap in services and how you can impact that. How did that evolve, and where are you now?
Um, what I did was, when my husband retired, they told him what he couldn't do, what he would find. So prior to that, I had my husband already ready. I already had his resume done. He already had his different clothing to transition in. He wasn't wearing army attire 24/7. On the weekends, we dressed casual. We dressed like the Germans dressed. So we really, for 9 years, I really embodied how the Germans dressed, their attire and everything, because I did not want to stand out, but I still wanted to be powerful, and I was still Franchetta. And so with that, I started looking at a lot of military spouses didn't know what was going on with their service member. Their kids was upset because they had to move consistently. The dogs had to be left behind or couldn't be brought overseas. So then I started looking at the family as a unit. And that is what a military family is. It's a unit, and we forget that. So Vetech Business Services decided to remind you of your foundation, because at the end of the day, when everyone else is gone and you retire, the only persons you will have is your unit, which is the service member, the spouse, and the dependent, if you have children, and an animal, if you should have one. And so for us, I wanted to make sure we were balanced. So I wanted to take that same thing that my parents taught. My parents was the essence of what a marriage looked like, a unit. So when I'm talking to my clients, I ask those hard questions that other companies can't ask. I asked about their children. I asked if you have special need children, if you have elderly parents, because your job is going to depend on how and the times of when you work. And if your home is unbalanced, no matter how hard you work, you're not happy. And sooner or later, something is going to crack. So Vetech Business comes in and they, cater to the service member. We want to make sure that that service member have a career path, and we have goals set so they can be independent even when Vetech Business Services isn't around. And then we go to the spouse. It doesn't matter if you are a stay-at-home mom, if you homeschool, that family needs to be ready for the aha moments. So that is why we want to make sure that that military spouse has a resume that we give them. And then we go to the dependents. We make sure that if they're in 11th or 12th grade and they're looking for colleges, that we help them, because that is my background. I used to be a registrar advisor, so I know what they need to have. So I want to give that expertise to them, so that takes a little bit off of their plate. And then the puppies or the cat, I'm not a cat person, but I can still help you. I'm a dog lover. So I want to make sure that the family is helped as a unit and no one is left behind, because I am their battle buddy. I am the one that holds them up when they don't see anyone else. I still have their back. And that is so important to me, to let my clients know you are not by yourself when you walk through this journey. If you choose to do so, okay, but you will always have me there backing you.
Outstanding. Now, I tell you, the greatest challenges as you start to transition, whether one location to another, or out of the service. Now, out of the service, the whole total that's ball of wax, right? Most of us, once we separate, we feel like, where did that service go? Yeah, where's all that? We're so used to getting a lot of things already planned and in place for us, and when we get out, whether separated or retired, those things cease as soon as you get out the front gate, right? But in your dealings with service member, we'll kind of approach this as a service member, spouse, and children, and potentially go into the pets. But for the service member, what has been the greatest challenge, or at least the consistent thing that comes up when you start dealing with the service member that tells you, man, this guy or this gal ain't ready for this move?
Well, one of the things is that they forget that they're transitioning sometimes, because they get so much information that it can be overwhelming. And some of them love to go with, my rank was this, so this is what I'm going to get because this is what I've been told. Now, this is going to ruffle feathers, but I have my own company, so I'm okay with it. That's not a true statement. And when I say that, I'm going to say that again. Your rank sometimes won't match with your GS position because you're not qualified for it. Just because you at this rank doesn't make you qualified for it. And I'll give you an example. I'll give you a master sergeant with a 2-year degree. That is a GS 14 right now. But he had the knowledge on his resume to get it. Now that 14 happened to be Master Sergeant retired Dyer, my husband. I know what they told him what he could be, but I knew what he should be. And I had already been prepping him years before he got ready to out process. He was already ready. I have other service members that I have to remind them, if you don't get it here, let me show you how to get here if you're not there. And most of them have listened to me, and they have gradually really went from a GS 13 to 14, 15 SESs. Because for me, my passion was enlisted. I will not lie. Enlisted wasn't getting a fair deal. They were getting offered 7s, 5s, and 9s. My GS enlisted, their 13s is the lowest. And yes, I take pride when I say that because my husband is an enlisted. Now, my officers, they're up there too. Don't get it wrong. But because no one was showing true love to them, I wanted to make sure that the enlisted knew that they had someone that was really rooting for them. And so one of the biggest thing is that don't go off of your rank. And I know other people are going to probably eat this up and say, I'm wrong. I'm a big girl. I'm 4'11" and a badass. So I'm okay with that. But your rank sometimes do not match the GS system because this is the one thing they don't want to tell you. You're not qualified. And I say that you're not qualified. And I'm not saying it to be nasty. I'm saying it to be realistic and to be honest with them. I have nothing to lose beside them saying, I'm not going to use Vetech Business Service anymore. Vetech Business Service sucks. I'm okay with that. They won't be the first person to say it, and they won't be the last. But I continue to still help service members, veterans, military spouses, and dependents.
And I believe that. I mean, there's a lot of senior enlisted that think they're going to just go into 13 jobs without having put no effort into it, just by virtue of their rank and seemingly experience. But if you can't capture that, and if you can't display that, present it, then you're not. So don't get butt hurt when you get a denial because you haven't prepped for it. And that's what I love about your service. Your services gets you right-sided, right? It takes you from where you think you are, it puts you where you really are, and then fills the gaps. And that's what I love about what you offer. Now, Franchette, the military spouse, you mentioned, hey, I got my MBA. And there's a lot of military spouses that have said, you know what, I'm going to dedicate my time to get this degree. And they have. And yet and still get offered similar to a service member. Because I remember, hey, look, I retired E8, 26 years, a ton of experience. And the most I could get was janitor at the VA.
You didn't have me.
That's right. That's right. Because I ain't have Franchette Dyer on my side. And so, but there's a lot of service members that is the story. And so they become overwhelmed and then they say, you know, I forget it. I ain't going to do this, that, and the other. And they'll take whatever. Right.
Right.
But I've seen it more often happen with the military spouse that gets drug around the world. Every 3 years, they got to reinvent themselves unless they were very, very tactful, right? They use some tacticians or strategies and to get them in a good position. What has been the outcry, right? And you know what it is because you are a military spouse. From the military spouse community when it comes to this transition?
One of the things is that they can't find a job. And then it depends on the location of where their service member is. And some places are very secluded. So then they're looking for remote jobs where most of the times, for example, and I'll use myself overseas, there may not be a lot of remote jobs, you know? And so this is the hard part about it. But what you have to do is know how to network. Again, that word wasn't used back then. Networking wasn't used, but listening was. And so you have to really know where you are. Ask these questions. I'm going to give you some tips for free, okay? When you're going to different locations and you're looking at specific places to work, and you know that maybe your husband work in that area, you can still work there. Because me and my husband worked together for years and no one ever knew it because it was very professional. It was Mrs. Dyer and Sergeant Dyer. But you need to find out about a TDA, okay? And a lot of you not going to know what that means, but you will. And you need to know what is the highest grade in that area because the highest grade could be a GS6. That's all they have. So you're looking for 12s and 13s in that area. The highest may only be a 6. You have to make the decision to take that position or to apply for that position or to stay unemployed. Now, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm going to tell you what I did. I took the GS4. I took the GS4 with an MBA. Then from there, I didn't stay that even long. They gave me leadership over the in and out processing. I ran the in and out processing at a GS5 with 2 people in there, me and another specialist, because I fired everyone in that office and moved them somewhere else. Let me be honest. Okay. And we rocked. Then from there, the next grade was a 6 in that same area. And I did not get it. A veteran beat me out of that. A 6. That was the highest in that area. But I was in the system. And I learned how to move around in the system, networking, where I did not have to apply for a position. I could call up a commander or whomever and be like, hey, this is my talents. This is what I can do for you. Would you consider me? And they said, go ahead and do this. Go ahead and do what you need to do. Yes, I'll take you. I can help certain people if you're overseas. I can help you. And yes, it's going to be many different things. But getting a job, you're going to have to know how to network, how to stand up for yourself. But please have the right attitude. Have the right attitude, because going into CPAC, CPOC with the wrong attitude, they are the ones you have to get past. They're the ones that get the referral list. And they're the ones to remember you. I worked at CPAC. They may not tell you this, but we do remember the rudeness. So be able, military spouses, to look out there, find jobs, but look at jobs that you can really do. But you have to make that decision on the grade level that you want. I made the decision to start off as a GS4 with an MBA. And I have some more degrees, but that's what I had to start with, the GS4. I held my head high. I didn't listen to the outside world. I didn't listen to other military spouses, because when we PCS from there were still those same military spouses, disgruntled, didn't have a job. And when I PCS, they still had the same thing, no jobs.
And it takes a lot of strategy. And
Yes.
you're talking, and I'm like, man, and when you're talking about checkers, right? You're on the board.
Yes.
Sometimes you got to sacrifice one to ensure that you get kinged on the end, right?
Yes.
And you have to use a level of strategy. I'm not talking about demeaning yourself, right? There's a difference there, right?
Do not do that.
If I had taken that job at the VA as a janitor, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that job.
Mm-hmm.
The fact is that I talk about overqualified. I think I done cleaned a lot before, so I know how to clean.
Yeah.
But it was not going to take into account all of my experience.
Correct.
That I would be able to provide in service, right, for a veteran in that community.
Yeah.
And just like you had decided, hey, I'm going to take this job right here.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't just a not thinking type of decision.
No.
It was a strategic decision. And so for those military spouses listening, and thank you, Suleika, I see Dr. Michelle here. Teresa, thank you for dropping by, and some others that are listening. If you're a military spouse, what strategy are you using, right? What strategy are you employing in this job search? And if you have a job and you're working on, have you considered a strategy for upskilling, right? And becoming better so that you can move on to another position. Now, there's a question here, and I'm going to put it up here so we can see it. What strategies do you offer for entering the VA when you have a private sector experience?
You have to look at the job announcement. And I have to see the job announcement. But what I would do personally for me, I look at the bullets to make sure that I have the qualifications that they're looking for. And you're not just looking at bullets, okay? You're looking at everything that they have on that job announcement. And you need to be able to mark it off. And if you can't mark off over 90%, this is me. I don't apply for the job because that's a waste of my time.
Mhm.
And I know I'm not going to be happy because they're going to ask you certain questions that you should know. That's the catch to job announcement. The money looks great. But if you say, for example, budget analyst, and you come and tell me that, yes, I had $1.2 million budget. Now I was manpower. So I deal in budget as well. So when I ask you, how did you allocate $1.2 million? You should be able to tell me ASAP. Not, well, I was over it, but other people dealt with it. Then stop putting $1.2 million budget on your resume when you can't tell me how you allocated it. You can't tell me what part was for awards, what part was for ABCD. Someone who has did budget will ask you certain questions that you should be able to answer as a budget analyst. So when you are applying for positions, put your resume up against that announcement and see everything that they're asking for. Do you see it in your resume? Make sure that it is there and that you can actually do that job. But also be honest with yourself. Are you applying for that position because of money or because of your skill set? You have to make that decision. A lot of people apply for positions because the money is really great. But that's what I would tell you, is to make sure that the job announcement and your resume side by side, and just highlight everything in pink, mean that you don't have it on your resume. Then you need to look at it and say, can I really do it? And if you can't, and that's some of the big things that they need, then you might need to go to the next job announcement. Don't waste your time in missing out on a true job that is really good for you, that if they say no to you, you can swallow it better than saying no to you and deep down inside you didn't qualify for it.
Absolutely. Either qualify or disqualify yourself, because it's going to be a lot of time between you applying and getting that done on their end.
Yes.
So thank you for that. There's a couple of comments here. Yeah, it looks like Franchette has zero tolerance for mess.
I
She
have
done told you already.
but I think as a military spouse, owning your own company, I have been hit with service members telling me that the only reason why I have my company is because of them. And I had to inform them the only reason I have my company is because of me. Because at 16, I didn't know who you were. And I also had to swallow that some clients are not going to like you. Okay. And they're going to probably not sometimes say nice things about you. And that's realistic. I'm saying things that are realistic, and I'm telling you what have happened to me. And it threw me for a moment. I swallowed it. I had to kind of do this. But at the end of the day, I'm the one that can lay my head on my pillow, look myself in the mirror 100%, and know that I've done what is right. That's the only thing you can do. That is the only thing you can do, because guess what? After that, I started interviewing my own clients. I started letting them know, no, you're not a good fit. And they would be like, oh, excuse me, I'm such and such. It doesn't matter. You're not a good fit for me. And I'm not going to tolerate disrespect. Not from anyone. I don't care if you're a 4-star general. And they haven't never disrespected me. So why would I let you start doing it,
That's right. That's right. No, Dr. Michelle said, thank you for reminding us to be self-aware of our skills versus what is posted. Having an open mind, a good attitude, and receptive to change. You must, right?
Yes.
That this is a, job hunting ain't a wish list. You just don't say, okay, I wish to be the sultan of whatever country, right? And then it's going to
Yes.
happen. You got to put in the work. You got to have the qualifications. You got to have what it takes to answer the mail, especially when they're asking you to, answer some questions about how did you do that,
Yeah.
right?
It's
You
your
got to be able
resume.
to do that.
Yeah. It's your resume. So you should know what you have on your resume. And you can't tell anyone, well, I'm a service member, and I'm a military spouse, and do you qualify for this job? Because if you don't, next.
And
That's just what it is.
it reminds me of a movie called Office Space. If you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. At least this one section. And it was two investigators come and said, okay, so what do you do? He goes, well, I take this and I send it to here, and I have them. And he goes, but do you do it? No, no, I give it to them. I say, okay, well, then you don't need to be here. they,
Exactly.
they got rid of him, right? You can't be an in between. You got to be the actual transaction, right? So,
Yes, yes,
wonderful. Now, I love how you bring in the total family effect to your business. Youngins, right? 11,
yes,
12 year olds, the most impressionable age
yes,
that they could ever be at. And they are also considering their life goals. And
yes,
we often don't ever look at that.
yes.
I tell you, it had to me as a service member, have my wife, she was handling everything at home,
Hmm.
a total disconnect between people's desires, my own wife's desires, although I supported her
Hmm.
wherever she wanted to do, but my children, what they wanted to do. Was
Yes,
I preparing them? Was I laying some ground for them to be able to not only get to their goal, but maybe supersede me by
yes,
leaps and bounds, right? Was I
yes.
laying that foundation? And there's not a lot of military members that are doing that
No,
because they're so engulfed and immersed into the mission at hand that they forget that the greatest mission is at home. So
yes.
how do you bring them in? Because I love this piece.
Well, what I do is I actually sit down if they're like 11th and 12th grade, and normally they're looking at colleges around that time frame, if not sooner. I also sit down with them trying to see what do you want to be? What are you considering? But also I want to pull in if they've had any summer jobs. So I want them to see their accomplishments as well. And I want them to feel positive about themselves. Now, if they're younger than that and they're still in school, I'm going to ask the questions. Where are you moving to? Because some of my clients are PCSing out, but they're moving to different states. So I want them to know that if they say, well, Franchetta, I'm moving here, this is something that I do on my own. And that is, I sometimes look up schools, I look up other jobs in that area to let the individual know, hey, here's some jobs that you might be interested in. That has nothing to do with everything else that I do for them. That has everything to do with how I was raised by my mom and dad. And you want to make sure that you help that family, that one unit, to be successful because it's no excuse for us to be unemployed veterans, unemployed military spouses, and and their dependents, being homeless. We're going to have to take a different approach to some of these things. No, we don't want to start at the bottom. Nobody does. But during my husband's transition, when he was getting ready to retire, I had to, for the first time, leave my family and travel to DC to work and then try to make it home every Friday night at 6 o'clock or 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, to see my husband and my daughter for a couple of hours to get up at 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. on Sunday and head back out for another week. And sometimes I could not even get back home to see them. I wasn't even there when my husband retired. And that was one thing I wanted to be. My daughter in the third or fourth grade had to stand in for me while I was up in DC. Oh, and by the way, I was also trying to graduate with another degree and be a mom, a wife, a lover, a friend, and all these other things. So it is a lot for a dependent. And so I had to make sure my daughter was good. I have to make sure that these families that come to me, that their children are good. They can't be left out because if so, the family is unbalanced. It's no peace, it's no joy, it's no success. Money cannot buy a smile. It can pay bills by all means, but it cannot buy dedication, communication, love, a unit. It cannot. So I have to make sure that when I'm talking to my clients, that I'm talking to the family. And I'll ask. And if they choose not to have them be a part of that, I tell them how important it is because I have also had to tell family members to stay in the military. I've also talked to them and said, you have no options. You're not telling me the things that need to be said, and you have this many years left. Do you think you and your wife and family can hold out 2 more years? And they have to be able to tell me, Franchetta, Let me think about it. And they'll come back and say, thank you. We're going to stay in. Because some of them don't have retirement money coming in. They don't have insurance.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have these things. And so Vetech Business, we really take a real look at that. We ask the questions that no one else is going to ask, and no one else really cares. They don't care what your family dynamics look like. So when people ask me, you know, how many people have you served? How much money have you done? Well, this is the one time I'm going to boast just a little bit. When I didn't have but 10 or 12 clients, I had already reached $500,000 or 500,000. Let me just say it like that so we get the full number. And I didn't have that many clients because my clients do make six figures, but they do listen to me. And we go through ups and downs and the egos. But I am there for the long run. So your family is so important to me. I'm not going to ignore the spouse, the dependent, nor the dog. I'm going to help you as much as I can. If you tell me you move into a different state, I'm going to help you. If I can, if you tell me, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to help you out as a family, as a unit, as I did my husband, as I do my daughter.
And the children are so important. Suleika
Yes.
says here, hey, I have an 8th grader who wants to be a mechanical engineer, and I've been looking to see what is available locally for her to achieve that. And you know, my son, he's 11. He goes, I want to be the owner of a gaming company. I was like, whoa, hold on.
Yeah.
You didn't even say you want to create games. I want to be the owner of a gaming company.
Yeah, so
and
that means he's going to take coding.
Yeah, and I said, well, what do you think you need? And we'll start going through that. You know, those questions. What do you think you need to be there? And I said, well, have you considered this and have you considered that?
Yes.
And then as a parent that has a vast network, I said, well, you know what? I happen to be connected with the CEO of this gaming company here locally. And he's like, what? I said, yep. And guess what we're going to do? We're going to ask to see if he can do you a little run through. So you can see right off the bat what they're up to and what they have to do to get there. And let's talk about this position. What did you need to get here? And because if you're going to own a company, you need to know what your people have to do. And so, you know, so I'm feeding that dream so that he can never say, hey, I ain't never get the support I needed. I didn't have the information I needed. I didn't even know that you had to do that. No. And going through, all right, you know what requires to have a company? You know, let's talk about that.
Yes.
Because it's nice that you have a goal, but if you don't have the full layout, you may realize that as I'm taking you through this journey of what's required, you might say, I don't think that's for me. Exactly. And if I could get, I don't think that's for me out of him at 11, by the time he's 18, right, 16, he could be ready, right? And so we have to invest into our children. And it's a Puerto Rican brother that he's getting in there. Hats off to you. Hey, Franchette. Thanks, brother. I appreciate you dropping by, Cello. And we'll talk soon. But it's one of the elements that are really critical in the family. We've made it a habit. I say a habit to let them express themselves. Now, as parents, right, raised as I was, right, the switch was near all the time. The switch was near. I don't know where it came from, but it was like magic. So I grew up in a different era where we were not allowed to express ourselves, and we just had to do what was said. I don't want to give them the freedom of expression to be, to offend, right? Not to offend,
right?
But get your idea out, because I might be able to help you with that, or I might have to say, "Ooh, that one's out of my lane right there, bro," and I might have to find somebody that can help you. But we're still going to get you some help. So thank you for addressing that specific need in the household. Um, and Dr. Michelle said Franchetta is the friend. All military. That's right. That's
Thank
why we're
you.
doing this show, Dr. Michelle, because we know that, and we need to let others know that. And so by all means, share this live, share the replay, and share Franchetta. We're gonna put her information in there, and she's already tagged, so you can connect with her, and we're about to go into that most. But let's talk about this outlier. The most we talk about pets is, can they go on a plane? Do Are they going to be held up in jail for 2 or 3 months? Right? What do we need to do to get this pet, this person, this pet that we love so much, across the seas, across? I spent some time in Hawaii. There's this, you have to have the pet stay at a house, a boarding place, until they're cleared and all that. How has that been? And I know the answer, but how has that been greeted by the family as a point in their family life that has never been addressed?
Well, the one thing that you have to realize is that when you have a pet, you can't just get on the plane and say, okay, everybody's here, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're good. No, you got a dog that needs to get on the plane, or you have a cat that needs to get on the plane. For me, when I moved from Germany back to the States, I had a 150-pound Rottweiler. His name was Prince Machiavelli Dyer. And the first thing that we had to do is make sure that he had his medicine to put him to sleep, because at 150-pound Rottweiler, we had a very large cage for him. And it took about 6 or 7 people to lift it, to put it on this little gaudy thing, cart, to push him, to get him ready to be transported. And so for us, it was important, because I would always tell them, and this is me, I said, all my luggage can be lost, but if my dog is not on this plane with me, we're going to be holding this plane up. Because you need to make sure that your pet has followed all the rules and regulations prior to you PCSing, prior to you ETSing out, even if you're overseas and you know that you're coming back, if you're in another country, even in another state, and you know that you're not going to be staying there, and you're going to ETS out, which is just leave the military without retiring, and you're going to get on a plane, make sure that you follow the rules and regulations of that state or that city, so that you're not stuck with Prince being left behind. For us, when we got ready to finally leave Germany, we were on the plane, and they made this announcement that they had one more piece of cargo that had to get on the plane, but it was held up because it was a dog. And they kind of described the dog, and I was like, oh, that's Prince. That's my dog. Good, because this plane shouldn't be leaving without a member of my family. Your pet, you are responsible for your pet. Do not get pets in the military if you cannot take care of them. We saw so many families had animals that they left in the base, in housing. Don't do that. If you know for sure that you cannot take care of a pet, make arrangements ahead of time, knowing that the family is going to have an empty spot there, but still have a place that that pet can go. If you should happen to bring your pet back to the States like I did, look for veterinarians who, can help your pet, can talk to them, because now you have different military spouses that actually can talk to pets, that can keep them calm. So reach out and look for different organizations that can help you when you transition your family out of the military or transition them to other states or countries, who can help you with your pet so they're not tearing up your shoes and your clothes or anything like that.
Valuable information, folks. I say this all the time, man. I don't have pets by design and by choice, right?
Right.
They require a certain amount of attention that I just can't give past my 6 kids. I just can't do it. Can't do it.
Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But you're honest.
But it's a conscious decision. But I also do it as a responsible citizen, that I'm not having a pet, and then now I'm not treating that pet that also demands love and care, and I can't provide that. So, I won't engage in that now because I see plenty that do and are not ready for that type of obligation. So, folks, we've been talking to Franchette Dyer here. Total care, right? Total care here of the veterans and the military family. If you're transitioning, if you're going from one place to another, you need that type of support and don't know where to get it. I'm letting you know where to get it, right? And we'll make sure to have all the specific links to get a hold of Franchette. But here on LinkedIn Live, you can get her on LinkedIn. Send her a DM, send her a connection request. Tell her that you saw her on this show, Aloha Friday Live, and start working with her. Franchette, transition isn't easy, but it doesn't have to be hard.
Correct.
And so thank you so much for the service that you provide, for being an entrepreneur from 16 years old. Folks, I don't know a lot of people that last that long in business, but there are some that started early and know what they're doing now. So if you have a transition need, folks that are transitioning could use the help. Connect them with Franchette and her services. And I just want to remind everybody, we will be highlighting from now until August 4th, AMSE, right? Association for Military Spouse Entrepreneurs, their members. And so we'll have every Friday, we're going to be highlighting a new member. Today is all about Franchette, and I'm so happy that we have had this opportunity to have you on the show. Folks, we are also on the march for 500 subscribers on YouTube. Please help us out. We're only about 40 shy from 500. That's not that much, but there's a lot of people that support us in one way or another. At DTLW, if you go to YouTube, you'll find the channel. Help us out to get to that. But today it has been all about Franchette Dyer doing her business. Hey, I'm not gonna say what she said, but she's dynamite and she can help you out. Folks, don't forget about every Friday, 11:30, we are coming live, bringing you a new business owner, just doing great things. Franchette, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Aloha, everybody. Have a safe weekend, and we'll see you next Friday.